After my fiancée became my sister-in-law, I knocked on my biased father's door, left Jingbei, this heartbreak place with 20 billion in assets, and posted a moment on my social feed. My fiancée ran off with my brother. This young master is single and available. The picture attached was my abs shot that cost me over 100,000. The next second, her friend's questioning call came through. Shinbuyu, are you out of your mind? Feng Xiao is so handsome, any woman would fall for him at first sight. Even I can't resist him. And you dare to let him have a gap in his love life. Upon learning that I had left, Shinbuyu flew into a rage. Immediately had her assistant find out where I was. But the answer she got was that I had already gone abroad. President Shin, given your status, you're not allowed to leave the country. This time, he might really have given up on you. Shinbuyu's pupils contracted, suddenly recalling her conversation with friends at the club that day. Buyu, just got back from your love nest, huh? That guy Feng Xiao is usually wild like a little wolf dog. Doesn't take anyone seriously. But when he's with you, he's both soft and tough. Makes my heart itch. When are you planning to marry him? I stopped in my tracks. My heart was pounding, full of hope. Yet what I heard was just playing around. What's his name? Her tone was very light. 7 words spoken so casually. But to me they were like 7 poison knives, piercing straight into my heart. At the same time, an eerie silence fell over the private room. Even her group of friends were clearly stunned. I don't know how long passed before someone carefully broke the silence. No way. Sister Shin, it's been 3 years. You still have that white moonlight in your heart. White moonlight. My mind went blank with a buzz. Completely empty. Shinbuyu. There's a white moonlight in his heart. I stood outside the door like a puppet whose strings had been cut, frozen in place, listening to Shinbuyu softly say, Back when we broke up, he said to give him 3 years. He would give it a try. Others told me to give it a try too. If we still liked each other, we'd get back together. So I did as he wished. 3 years. I tried it all. He paused as he spoke. He should be back by now. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. My whole body went cold. Even my fingertips trembled. In these 3 years, countless tender moments. All the times I thought our hearts were connected. It was just his experiment to test another person. What about Feng Xiao then? With his personality, if he finds out. But before he could finish, I pushed open the heavy door of the private room. Everyone inside was startled. Everyone turned their gaze towards the door. I just stood there. My face was frighteningly pale. I stared fixedly at the woman sitting in the main seat, but she did not show any surprise or panic at my sudden appearance. She still wore that aloof expression. If she had even a little liking for me, she would not be reacting like this right now. I walked up to her, gazing intently at this face. Shinbuyu, don't you have anything to say to me? There's nothing to say. It's exactly what you heard. We were just fooling around. I always thought you understood that. Shin Luoheng made a bet with you to win me over. The luxury cars in his garage. You can take your pick, if you think luxury cars aren't enough. Saying this, she took out a black bank card from her coat pocket and gently pushed it onto the coffee table in front of me. Here is 100 million. Consider it payment for being at your beck and call for 3 years. From now on, our relationship is completely over. After saying that, I stood up and prepared to leave. But the moment I passed by her, I suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist tightly. Shinbuyu, but I have feelings for you. As I spoke, I thought of every little thing over these 3 years. But she shook her head, took out her phone and showed me a new message. The preview was clearly in my sight. Buyu, 3 years. I tried, but I still only like you. Let's get back together. At that moment, I felt my world completely collapse. Shinbuyu first paused on the screen for a moment. Then she slowly pried open my fingers that were gripping hers tightly. Sorry, I don't have feelings for you. After that, she had no more attachment. Turned and walked away with big strides. She said she didn't have feelings. So for these 3 years, I was the only one who acted like a fool, pouring all my true emotions into this play she directed. I stood there, looking at my empty hand. The next second, I suddenly grabbed the expensive foreign liquor on the coffee table and smashed it hard on the ground. Everyone in the private room was stunned. No one dared to step forward to stop me. I don't know how long passed. I walked out of the club. The night wind blew. My face felt icy cold. I roughly wiped away my tears. Hailed a taxi. Follow that Maybach ahead. I want to see with my own eyes the one she's been thinking about for 3 years. The white moonlight that even I couldn't compare to. Who exactly is it? The driver saw I was in a bad state. Didn't dare to ask more. Stepped on the gas and followed. However, Shinbuyu, who was always calm and composed, and drove very steadily. Now her speed was noticeably faster. Seeing this, I felt another pang of heartache. Is she that eager to go see her white moonlight? The car finally stopped at the arrivals level of the international airport. I paid the fare. Stumbling, I got out of the car. Hiding behind a pillar, I saw Shinbuyu standing at the exit. Then a man came out dragging a suitcase. When I saw that man's face, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. Not just because when Shinbuyu rushed over, he opened his arms and caught her steadily, and lowered his head to kiss her hair, but even more because that white moonlight turned out to be Fangzun, that nominal brother of mine, the person I detest most in this life and want nothing to do with. Back then, less than half a year after my mother died in a car accident, my father brought a woman home. That woman also brought a son 3 years older than me. That was Fangzun. Father explained. That woman was his first love. Fangzun was his biological son. If it weren't for my mother snatching him away back then, she wouldn't have parted with her first love while pregnant. But I know the truth better than anyone. Back then, my father needed funds to start his business. He was desperate, couldn't even afford to eat. It was he who actively went to find my mother, who had been chasing him for a long time, promising that as long as his mother's family injected capital, he would marry her. My mother gave him money, gave him all her love, and even later in a car accident, she gave her life to push him out of the way. What was the result? My mother's body was not yet cold. Father turned around and used her dowry and inheritance as a betrothal gift, grandly marrying that so-called first love, Shinbuyu. He could love anyone he wanted. Why did it have to be Fangzun? In that moment of daze, Shinbuyu had already taken Fangzun's luggage. Walking toward the parking lot, as if possessed, I hailed another car, continuing to follow them, because I was following closely. Through the car window I could clearly see in the car ahead. Shinbuyu turned her head, saying something gently to Fangzun, and even reached out to naturally brush the stray hair from Fangzun's ear, a gesture of tenderness I'd never received from her in 3 years together. Just as I stared straight ahead, my vision blurring with tears, suddenly an accident occurred at the intersection ahead. A screech of brakes and the sound of collisions rang out one after another. The taxi I was riding in rear-ended the car in front without warning, then was violently hit from behind by another vehicle. The immense impact struck. I felt my forehead smash against the back of the front seat. Sharp pain. Blood immediately streamed down, blurring my sight. Amid the chaos and screams, I saw through the shattered window that familiar Maybach up ahead. The door opened. Shinbuyu was the first to get out. She quickly walked around to the passenger side, carefully helped Fangzun out of the car. Shinbuyu supported him, checking on his injuries, her brows tightly furrowed, her face full of concern. Finally she helped Fangzun turn around, preparing to leave the scene of the accident. But as she turned, she locked eyes with me, trapped in the back seat of the mangled taxi. I saw shock in her eyes, but it vanished in an instant. Fangzun seemed to notice her pause. "Buyu, what's wrong? Did you see someone you know?" "I'm fine. If you do know someone, you should go check on them. I heard a taxi got hit badly." After a few seconds of silence, Shinbuyu looked away. "No one I know, just strangers." With that, she helped Fangzun, and walked away from the chaotic accident scene without looking back. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. A nurse was adjusting the foredrip on my hand. Seeing I was awake, she reminded me, "Mr. Fang, you're finally awake. You're seriously injured. You need to be hospitalized for observation. We also need to contact your family. Please settle the medical fees." But my eyes were vacant. I had no reaction at all. The nurse repeated herself, "Mr. Fang." Just then, a familiar voice rang out, "The medical fees. I've already paid." I jerked my head around and saw Shinbuyu standing at the door of the ward. The nurse, seeing this, tactfully left the room. Shinbuyu walked in. Her gaze swept over my bandaged wound. Then she reached out, as if wanting to touch my forehead. I turned my head away to dodge. "President Shin, you're swamped with work. Why would you come to take care of someone irrelevant?" Shinbuyu's movement froze. "If I don't come, do you have anyone else to come?" That hit the mark. Who else do I have? My mother died early. My father is partial. My stepmother is hypocritical. That home is no longer my home. These 3 years it was her. Shinbuyu appeared time and again when I needed her most, making me used to relying on her, making me mistakenly think I had found a harbor. But now, the one who personally pushed me back into the abyss is also her. Even if no one comes, I don't need your concern. You said it yourself, didn't you? We're over. President Shin, I'm not that pathetic. If you say you don't like me, I wouldn't shamelessly cling to you. I took a deep breath, struggling to hold on to the last shred of pride. You don't actually believe I meant it when I said I had feelings before, do you? I was just saying it casually. We were just playing around. And Shinbuyu, you're really fake. Shinbuyu, looking at me, feigning fierceness but with red-rimmed eyes. Her brow slightly furrowed. She was about to say something, but then a nurse hurriedly pushed the door open. "Miss Shin, Mr. Fangzun, the examination over there is done. He's been looking for you." Hearing this, I immediately felt like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "That's enough. Go on, run to your moonlight. I don't need you here. Shunbuyu silently looked at me for a few seconds. Finally, she spoke. I came to accompany you. Not for any other reason. You are Shun Luoheng's friend. He asked me to look after you. At that moment, I finally couldn't help but laugh. But even though the smile tugged at my wound, the pain was nothing compared to a fraction of the ache in my heart. Shunbuyu, don't worry. I'm not that delusional. At that moment, Shunbuyu's heart trembled slightly. This was the first time he had ever seen me cry. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he said nothing. He turned and followed the nurse out of the ward, watching her resolute back as she left. I finally couldn't hold on and collapsed onto the hospital bed. I thought I would cry for a long time, but strangely, the tears dried up quickly. In the following days, I took care of myself alone in the hospital. Changing the dressing, I broke out in cold sweat from the pain. Eating the food tasted like wax. Occasionally, I heard the nurses whispering in the hallway, saying how lucky Mr. Fong Zun in the next VIP ward was, how attentive Miss Shun was, feeding him food and water herself, staying overnight to watch over him. Once I passed by that ward. Through the slightly ajar door, I saw Shunbuyu sitting by the bed, peeling an apple. That scene was seared deep into my eyes. The pain made everything go black, but I didn't cry. Fong Xiu, my greatest strength is that I can love and let go. The first thing I did after being discharged from the hospital was to apply for a visa. I don't want to stay in this city for even a moment longer. After getting the visa, I went home. As soon as I walked in, I ran into my stepmother, who was impeccably made up. Seeing me, she habitually began to lecture. Fong Xiu, you still know to come back? I didn't even look. I directly took the half-man-tall celadon vase at the entrance and smashed it hard onto the floor. With a loud bang, shards flew everywhere. Lin Wan screamed in fright and took 2 steps back. Who do you think you are? A home-wrecking mistress dares to lecture me? Lin Wan, remember this. As long as I, Fong Xiu, am still in this house, you will never be able to hold your head high. I was sharp-tongued, making Lin Wan turn pale with anger. She trembled all over. Fong Xiu, what kind of tantrum is this? Fong Fu rushed out of the study hearing the noise. He quickly supported the swaying Lin Wan and glared at me angrily. You stir up trouble as soon as you come back. Can't you be more mature? I looked at my father protecting that woman and sneered. I stir up trouble? Fine. As long as you give me my inheritance early, I'll go abroad and never come back to bother you. Fong Fu was taken aback. Then a fake concern appeared on his face. Nonsense, go abroad? What would you go out there for? Stay here. This is always your home. We are family. I felt like I had heard the biggest joke. Stepmother, stop acting. Fong Fu, you, him, and Fong Zun. You are all one family. My mother is dead. I don't have a home anymore. Just name your price directly. I want the part that I deserve. Upon hearing this, Fong Minghong's expression immediately turned ugly. After a long silence, he finally spoke hypocritically. Dad knows you hold a grudge against the family. Here, Dad will give you 5 million first. Go out and clear your mind. 5 million? Fong Minghong, you got where you are today because of my maternal grandfather's money. You relied on the dowry my mother brought. Even your own life was saved by my mother sacrificing hers. Now you use my mother's money to support this mistress and her bastard. You live in the house my mother bought, and you try to fob off her own son with just 5 million? Where is your shame? Fong Minghong was stung by the truth, flushed with humiliation and anger. How much do you actually want? I'll cut to the chase. I came prepared. He pulled a document from his pocket and calmly reeled off a string of numbers and share names. You're crazy. That's impossible. You're trying to drain half of Fong Corporation. Fine, you don't have to agree. I buried bombs outside the villa. Either you agree to hand over the money and sign this agreement, or we all die here together today. Choose. Fong Xiu, you're nothing but a madman. Yes, I am a madman. Fong Minghong's face turned ashen. His breathing grew rapid. He stared at me fixedly, as if trying to gauge whether I was telling the truth. In the end, the fear of death outweighed everything. Is it done now? Hurry up and get rid of the bombs. Relax, there are no bombs. I was lying. After all, that's how you tricked my mother into marrying you. Isn't it? Only then did Fong Minghong realize. He had been played. He was so furious. He nearly passed out, pointed at me for a long time but couldn't utter a single word. The thing I had in mind was already in hand. Of course I was too lazy to look again. Just as he turned around to go upstairs. Your brother is bringing his girlfriend home for dinner today. No matter how you messed around before. I don't care, this time you must finish this meal properly for me. His girlfriend is Shinbuyu. What status does the Bai family have in the Jin clan? You know, we can't afford to offend them. Put away that rebellious streak of yours. Don't cause me trouble. My footsteps going upstairs suddenly stopped. My back instantly stiffened. Unaware. She was going to visit today as Fang Zun's girlfriend. Before I could overthink, the door opened the next second. Fang Zun walked in holding Shen Bayu's hand, smiling. Dad, Mom, I'm back. Fang's father and his stepmother, who had just recovered, immediately put on warm and enthusiastic smiles, went up to greet them, asked Fang Zun how he was, full of care, and were extremely respectful toward Shin Buyu. Their attitude was sycophantic. Only Shin Buyu, when her gaze fell on me, she clearly frowned slightly, seeming to realize at that moment that I was actually Fang Zun's younger brother. During the meal, Fang Zun and Shin Buyu naturally sat on one side. I sat alone across from them. Throughout the entire meal, I watched helplessly as Shin Buyu carefully for him. Fang Zun also for him rapped. Lin Wan, watching this scene, her face broke into a smile. Fang Zun, how did you and Miss Shin meet? Tell Mom about it. It was at a charity gala. I saw a stray cat stuck in a tree. I wanted to help it, but I couldn't climb up no matter what. Shin Buyu helped me. Later she asked for my contact info. When he spoke, he even sounded a bit innocent. The little bastard's meekness. Seeing this, I couldn't help but snicker. Fang Zun had hated small animals since childhood. He even tortured a cat to death when he was young. How could he possibly take the initiative to save a cat? That family of 4 was enjoying a harmonious meal, eating and chatting. I had no interest in playing along with their happy family charade. So I got up and went straight to the garden. But not long after, Fang Zun followed me out. Brother Fang, enjoying the wind alone here. Actually, I know why you're like this. Everyone in our circle told me. About those 3 years between you and Buyu. I kept my back to him. My body stiffened slightly, but I didn't turn around. To be honest, when I first found out, I was actually a bit worried. After all, my younger brother's charm that appeals to both men and women. Who wouldn't be tempted? What a pity, though, to have such a face for nothing. Your mother couldn't compete with mine. And you can't compete with me either. These 3 years were just my charity to you. Now that the real one is back, it's time for you, the fake, to exit. I slowly turned around. There was no anger or sadness in my eyes as Fang Zun had expected. Only mockery. Charity? Fang Zun, have you been abroad so long that you've forgotten what you really are? A bastard who could only enter the family through his mother being a mistress. A pathetic wretch who can only hold onto a woman by playing tricks. How dare you talk about charity in front of me? Your mother picked up the trash my mother didn't want. You pick up the woman I don't want. You two, mother and son, truly share the same bloodline. Always picking up what others left behind. Fang Xiu. The smile on his face froze instantly. His face turned pale and then green. You think you've won. It's just that I, Fang Xiu, played with, and then discarded a woman I no longer wanted. You picked her up and treated her like treasure, showing her off everywhere. After saying that, I turned to leave, but just as I turned around, Fang Zun behind me suddenly let out a scream. His forehead slammed directly into the edge of a stone bench in the garden, instantly gushing tomato juice. Almost at the same time, Shin Buyu, Fang Minghong and Lin Wan rushed out of the living room. Fang Zun fell to the ground, covering his bleeding forehead. Mom, Dad, no. Don't blame him. Lin Wan immediately threw herself over, holding her son Fang Zun in her arms. How could you be so foolish? After everything she's done to you, you're still defending him. Minghong's face turned ashen, pointing at me, burning with rage. Fang Xiu, what have you done to your brother again? I stood still, watching this carefully staged frame-up coldly. My gaze first swept over my furious father, then my hypocritical stepmother, finally landed on Shin Buyu. I saw her crouching beside Fang Zun, carefully checking his wound, then lifting her head to glare at me with hatred. Great. This woman is also a disaster. And I'm right. Fang Zun is the one in her heart. Why would she ever believe me? I thought for a moment, then walked over step by step, under the stunned gaze of everyone, grabbed a heavy ceramic flower pot nearby, and without hesitation aimed at Fang Zun's forehead that had just been split open and slammed down hard. A dull thud followed. By an even more piercing scream from Fang Zun, I released my grip and tossed away the shattered flower pot. Listen up. I didn't strike him just now, but now I did. Everyone was completely stunned, including Shin Buyu. I dropped the remaining shards of ceramic in my hand, turned and started to leave. But then my wrist was suddenly seized by a tremendous force. Shin Buyu grabbed me tightly. Her face was so dark it could drip water. Chairman Fang, your son has done this sort of thing. If he is not properly disciplined, I'm afraid I won't let it go either. Fang Minghong felt both sorry for Fang Zun and feared Shin Buyu's power, so he quickly bowed and scraped. President Shin, rest assured, I will definitely teach this reckless, ungrateful son a good lesson. He immediately called for the bodyguards. Seize this unfilial son for me. Drag him to the ancestral hall and make him kneel. How dare you? I struggled, glaring at my father with fierce eyes. But Fong Minghong looked at Shin Buyu and asked obsequiously, "What do you think?" Making him kneel in the ancestral hall to reflect this punishment. Shin Buyu helped up Fong Zun, whose forehead was bleeding profusely. His cold gaze swept over me. The words he spat out were utterly cruel. "Too light. I just saw a horsewhip hanging in the study. That's not just a decoration, is it?" With that, he helped Fong Zun and left without looking back. I was thunderstruck. Unable to believe it, I stared at his retreating figure. He actually hinted for Fong Minghong to whip me with the horsewhip. Fong Minghong immediately understood and yelled at the bodyguards, "Did you hear that? First give me 30 lashes. Then drag him to the ancestral hall to kneel. Without my permission. Do not let him get up." I struggled desperately, but the bodyguards held me down firmly. With so many people against me, I still wasn't calm enough, although I said I didn't care. In reality, I cared desperately. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been provoked into anger by just a few words from Fong Zun. I was forcibly dragged to the side hall. When I regained consciousness again, I found myself lying in the bed in my own room. My whole body ached as if it had been crushed. The maid, Zhang Ma, was secretly applying medicine to me, tears streaming down her face, persuading the young master softly, "You should just give in to the master. Why suffer like this?" I shook my head weakly. Give in. Giving in to this family will only leave me with nothing. I paused, then forced out a smile uglier than crying. "It's just a beating. I've also fired that cannon at Fong Zun. I can take it, no loss." After saying that, I painfully pulled a bank card from under the pillow and pressed it into Aunt Zhang's hand. "Take this." Aunt Zhang was startled. She quickly pushed it back. "Young master, how can I take your money? I've had this ready for a long time. I'm going abroad. I probably won't be coming back. You were brought from my mother's maiden home, an old servant. Staying here now. They won't treat you well. This money is enough for you to enjoy your old age. Listen to me, quit and leave this place." Aunt Zhang looked at the thin card in her hand, then at me, bruised and battered on the bed, yet still thinking of her. She couldn't hold back her tears. She was about to kneel down with a thud. I quickly stopped her. "Aunt Zhang, I suddenly feel like having your lotus root and spare rib soup." All right. I'll go make it right now. Right away." Aunt Zhang quickly wiped her tears, got up, and hurried to the kitchen. The room fell silent again. I stared at the ornate but cold ceiling, and slowly closed my eyes. Over the next few days, I stayed in my room to recover. Fighting through the pain, I slowly packed up all my luggage. I also sorted out everything Shin Buyu had given me. He doesn't love me. Generous with the money, I see. The total value of these items must be close to 100 million. I was initially going to just throw them away, but then I had a second thought, so I called the owner of that high-end club I frequent. I heard the club was holding a charity auction recently, so I told him I also had many things to auction off. The other party quickly replied, saying there was an event tonight and told me to come over. In the evening, I took those big boxes to the club. After handing the items over to the auction manager, I turned around, but as luck would have it, I ran into Shin Buyu and Fong Zun walking in together. Shin Buyu was clinging tightly to Fong Zun's side. When Fong Zun saw me, a flicker of pride and provocation flashed in his eyes. I instinctively clenched my hands, but quickly let them go again. I had serious business to take care of today. No need to waste my emotions on them. I had just sat down, when the lights suddenly dimmed. The host walked on stage and excitedly announced that before the auction began, there would be a 3-minute kissing session, inviting all the couples present to enjoy the spotlight. The light swept randomly through the dim venue, illuminating pairs of men and women locked in embraces and kisses. I happened to see, not far away, Shin Buyu laughing as she wrapped her arms around Fong Zun's neck. Fong Zun looked down at her, then leaned in and kissed her. But before my heart could even ache, the next second, a heavy iron chandelier bracket above our heads came loose, and then it fell straight toward Fong Zun. Shin Buyu reacted incredibly fast. She shoved Fong Zun away fiercely, but the edge of the bracket still grazed the back of Fong Zun's head. At this, her face turned pale. She immediately dragged Fong Zun and rushed anxiously to the parking lot to head to the hospital. Meanwhile, I got hit by another chandelier bracket. The pain was so intense I nearly passed out. I was also taken to the hospital by a kind passerby. This accident came suddenly and ended just as suddenly. Only a few of us were involved. I had just finished lying around at home, and now I had to lie in the hospital again. But I had barely been settled into my ward when Shin Buyu burst in. Her face was terrifyingly dark, looking at me with that gaze, as if she wanted to devour me alive. "Fang Xiu." I checked the surveillance footage. "You bribed the club staff, deliberately loosened the lamp bracket, trying to kill Fong Zun with it. Are you out of your mind?" "Shin Buyu. Besides you, who else would have such malice toward Fong Zun?" "Fang Xiu, I really underestimated you. No means no. Shinbuyu, you have no right to slander me. Looks like if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't tell the truth. Saying that, he took out his phone and made a call. Fang Xiu, the second young master of the Fang family, is suspected of intentional injury. Send someone over to lock him up for a few days. Let him sober up. My eyes widened. My face full of disbelief. Couldn't believe he was actually going to pull strings to have me thrown behind bars. Then what was the point of me getting hit? Soon, people in uniforms arrived at the hospital room. Ignoring the doctor's objections and my injuries, forcibly took me away. The next few days were nothing short of hell on earth for me. There I suffered terribly. The people in the same room seemed to have received special treatment. They bullied me in every way possible, beating and kicking me. A few days later, when I was released, I was almost beyond recognition, covered in wounds, barely alive. What kept me crawling out of that hell was a message I had just received on my phone. My visa had finally been approved. I took a taxi back to the villa, planning to grab my luggage and rush to the airport. But as soon as I entered, I ran into someone who had just returned from a world tour, having learned everything. My good brother who had hurried over, Shin Luoheng. Shin Luoheng, seeing me in this state, his face full of guilt, apologizing incessantly, he said, Fang Xiu, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Back then, I just didn't like my cousin's ex-boyfriend, so I deliberately provoked you into going after her. I never thought it would turn out like this. I didn't know that her first love was Fang Zun. If I had known, I would never have let you go, even if it killed me. Don't blame yourself, it's in the past. I've already let it go. I plan to go abroad. I probably won't come back. Shin Luoheng was stunned. He quickly spoke up to stop Fang Xiu. Don't go. Stay in the country. I'll protect you. As long as I have food to eat, you'll have a share. There's nothing left here worth staying for. Before leaving, I took one last look back at this house that held all my childhood memories, now taken over by my father with his mistress and illegitimate son, their presence blatant. I took out the gasoline I had long prepared, ignoring the servant's pleas, and expressionlessly splashed it around. Then I lit a flame, shooting up into the sky, devouring everything from the past. Then I picked up my final luggage and turned around resolutely. Shin Luoheng drove me to the airport. He kept apologizing along the way, saying he would give me the entire garage of luxury cars as compensation. I just shook my head, gently leaning against the car window. Oh, by the way, Xiaofeng, even if I don't rely on talent, but with this face of mine, as long as I want, the people from now on will only be better and better. Our handsome Mr. Fang can have whatever he wants. Arriving at the airport, Shin Luoheng hugged me and refused to let go, still apologizing continuously. I know his temperament. I don't blame him. It's not his fault. I gently patted his back. Then he let go, waved his hand with ease, turned and walked toward the security checkpoint. Shin Luoheng watched helplessly as my figure disappeared down the corridor. No one knew how long he stayed silent. Only then did he muster the courage to dial Shin Buyu's number. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Cousin Shin Luoheng's tone was harsh. I know you like Fang Zun, but you and Fang Xiu have been together for 3 years. He's leaving now, not ever coming back. Can't you even bother to see him off? The line fell into dead silence. A few seconds later, Shin Buyu's voice finally came through. Who did you say left? Fang Xiu. He's gone. Took the earliest flight out of the country. She said she won't come back, that I'm to blame. Are you satisfied now, cousin? Shin Luoheng nearly shouted, then slammed the phone down hard. A sharp, busy tone buzzed from the receiver. Shin Byu kept the phone to his ear, frozen in place. Fang Xiu left. Gone abroad. Never coming back. Those words combined, pounded into his mind. He frowned, tossed his phone back onto the table, trying to refocus on the crucial merger documents in front of him. But the dense text and numbers now crawled before his eyes like a swarm of chaotic ants. Impossible to concentrate. His mind uncontrollably replayed the look he gave me right before I was taken into the detention center. He loosened his tie in irritation, stood up and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. Not knowing how long he stared out, suddenly he grabbed his car keys and strode out of the office. As the elevator descended, he dialed the airport director's private number. Check which outbound flight Fang Xiu is on. Immediately, he rushed to the airport at an astonishing speed. The airport manager was already waiting there with deference and trepidation, handing over the information just found. Director Shin, Mr. Fang is on flight XX-108 to Paris. The plane took off 20 minutes ago. Shin Bayu's footsteps suddenly stopped. He looked up at the huge flight information display screen. The status board of flight FX-108 clearly displayed 3 cold green characters, departed. He stood frozen in the bustling, noisy hall, his ears filled with announcements in various languages. The rolling sound of suitcase wheels, the chatter and laughter of travelers. Just then, the phone in his pocket vibrated again. The name Fong Zun, flashing on the screen. He took a deep breath, answered the call but said nothing. My head is still a bit dizzy. Are you still busy now? I miss you. In the past, he would have dropped everything and rushed over immediately. But at this moment, he watched the light of the flight that had just disappeared into the night sky outside the window, was silent for a long time, and finally replied with a sound. I'm coming right now. When he arrived at the hospital VIP ward, Fong Zun was leaning against the headboard, looking somewhat pale. Seeing him enter, a joyful smile immediately appeared on his face. Shinbayu sat by the bedside, listening to Fong Zun's incessant chatter. But he was somewhat distracted. Fong Zun keenly sensed his unusual silence, carefully probing without a word. Are you worried about Fong Xiu? I heard everything from Dad. He's gone abroad. But this time he went way too far. Taking a trip abroad to clear his head isn't a bad idea. Once he thinks it through, maybe he'll come back. Let's not talk about him anymore. Fong Zun immediately nodded at that. A smile returned to his face. But what he didn't know was, after he fell asleep, Shinbuyu took out her phone again. Her finger hovered over the screen for a moment. Finally, she opened the assistant's chat window, typed out a line. Keep an eye on Fong Xiu's activities abroad. Compile a brief for me every week. Yet just as her fingertip was about to hit send, her movement froze. What am I doing? He's just a plaything. Is he worth this much of my attention? With a flick of her finger, she swiftly deleted the drafted message. Life after reuniting with Fong Zun seemed perfect and enviable to outsiders. A well-matched couple, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Shinbuyu also fulfilled every duty as a girlfriend. Having meals, commuting to work, attending necessary social functions. But only Shinbuyu herself knew. This seemingly flawless life was in truth dull and insipid. She would suddenly zone out while reviewing documents by the office floor-to-ceiling window, recalling how once upon a time, I would sneak in when she was busiest, hug her from behind, deliberately breathe in her ear, disrupting all her work rhythm. She would, while on a private jet, subconsciously glance at that tiny restroom. When I finally carried her out wrapped in a blanket, he still muttered under his breath, unconvinced. These untimely memories surfaced like ghosts, making her increasingly irritable. She took Fong Zun to the private kitchen restaurant we used to frequent, which required months of advance booking. The dishes were still exquisite, the ambience still elegant. Shinbuyu ate in silence, yet inexplicably remembered. I would always, when he wasn't looking, quickly snatch from his bowl the dish he had his eye on, not spicy at all. In the end, I'd always drink from his cup to quench the spice, then say with utter confidence, "What's yours is mine." That meal was always chaotic and lively, yet bursting with vitality. While this meal before her was so quiet, only the clink of utensils remained. Faint sounds of collision, a dullness that nearly suffocated him. At night, she habitually slept on the inner side of the bed. In a half-awake, half-asleep state, her arm subconsciously reached out to the side. What she touched was warm. The body felt wrong. The temperature felt wrong. There was none of that lively, fiery sensation. The scent felt wrong. There was none of that natural body fragrance. Even the faint sound of breathing in sleep was off. I sleep very restlessly. I would unconsciously steal the covers. Like a little creature seeking warmth, I would groggily burrow into his arms. Shinbuyu snapped open his eyes. A strong sense of aversion surged in his heart. He got up and left the bed. You go to sleep. I just remembered there's an urgent document I need to handle. After saying that, ignoring Fong Zun's bewildered look, he walked straight into the study and closed the door. He needed to be alone. He needed to calm down. He needed to drive out the increasingly clear figure in his mind. A week later, an important business gala. Shinbuyu and Fong Zun attended. Everyone thought they were a perfect match. But Shinbuyu found the occasion unbearably dull. During the banquet, a young master took a dislike to Fong Zun and deliberately made things difficult for him. Fong Zun just turned to look at Shinbuyu. In the past, Shinbuyu would think his family background wasn't enough, and naturally needed him to back him up. But at this moment, he inexplicably thought of me. If I were in this situation, I would probably just splash the wine from my glass back at him, then casually say, "Sorry." My hand slipped. This strong contrast startled him. Just then, a member of a high society family with a grudge against the Bai family, and a notoriously sharp tongue, sauntered over to toast. I heard you broke up with Fong Xiu. He's gone abroad to enjoy himself. What a pity. I really wanted to taste it. But before the words faded, Shinbuyu, without any warning, slapped the other person hard across the face. The person opposite was caught off guard, let out a shriek, and was directly knocked to the ground. Blood instantly gushed from the nose. The entire scene fell into dead silence. Everyone stared in shock at this sudden development. Shinbuyu looked down at the person wailing on the ground. Who do you think you are? With that, he stopped looking at the person on the floor or the astonished guests around. Left a final remark. Watch your mouth. Then, pulling Fang Xiu, who was equally stunned, he turned and left. This was the first time in his life he had lost his composure at such an important public occasion. And all because someone had made a frivolous mention of me. On the way home, the atmosphere inside the car was oppressive. Fang Xiu seemed frightened. After a long silence, he cautiously hinted to Shinbuyu. Mom called again today, asking when we plan to consider marriage. Shinbuyu rubbed his brow. His tone was full of dismissiveness. The company has several cross-border mergers and acquisitions recently. They are at a critical stage. I'm busy with affairs. Let's talk later. Late at night, Shinbuyu stayed alone in the study. He opened an encrypted photo album on his phone. Inside, there was only a very short video. It was from a friend's gathering a few years ago. Someone teased me into singing. I couldn't refuse their enthusiasm, so I jumped onto the stage, grabbed the microphone, and sang an upbeat pop song. When did he save this video? Even he had forgotten. Watching the unrestrained figure on the screen, and comparing it to the stagnant life now, Shinbuyu's heart felt as if it were being clenched tightly by an invisible hand. A suffocating dull ache spread through him. He abruptly turned off the video, and flipped the phone face down on the table. His chest heaved violently. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Beijing Capital International Airport. Shinbuyu returned from a business trip for an important multinational cooperation project. Fang Zuns accompanied her as her fiancé. The trip was low-key. They avoided the hustle of regular passengers by taking the VIP passage. However, just after stepping out of the passage, a deafening wave of sound hit them. In the arrival hall, there was a sea of people. Countless young boys and girls held flashing light boards, flowers and posters, shouting the same name fervently and in unison. Fang Xiu, Fang Xiu. The sound was so loud it nearly lifted the airport roof. Many ordinary travelers also stopped in their tracks, curiously looking around, murmuring among themselves. Who is that? With such a massive scene, don't you know? Fang Xiu, the current top superstar. Debuted 3 years ago, known as the modern Pan, the living thousand-faced best actor. Shinbuyu's footsteps, upon hearing my name, uncontrollably halted. She subconsciously followed the sound and the crowd's gaze, and finally fixed her gaze on the opposite side of the passage. On a giant billboard hanging from a huge pillar, she stood still, her eyes locked tightly on that huge poster all around it. All the noise seemed to fade away in an instant. The world only had that dazzling figure like a star. At that moment, Fang Zuns also saw the billboard. He instinctively tightened his grip on Shinbuyu's hand. Buyu, that's Fang Xiu. I've long heard that he went abroad to develop in recent years. It seems he became a celebrity, proper eldest son. Instead of that, he ran off to showbiz, that kind of place. His voice carried a deliberate belittling tone. But Shinbuyu seemed not to hear it. She wasn't unaware. Over the past 3 years, although he never actively sought me out, but news about me would always reach her ears through various channels. She knew that I peaked right at my debut, knew that every movie of mine was critically acclaimed, and also commercially successful. She knew how many heavyweight awards I had won. He even had his assistant secretly buy every movie ticket of mine. He also collected posters and merchandise from the products I endorsed. They were hidden in the most secret drawer of his study. He just never allowed himself to come find me. The next moment, his gaze pierced through the surging crowd. It locked onto the figure that had just emerged from the regular passageway, under the close escort of bodyguards and assistants. Empty line, no text to translate. With just one glance, she felt that the real me was even more dazzling than the poster. Just as Shinbuyu was staring at me across the sea of people, a woman suddenly broke through the crowd with a smile, holding a striking bouquet of Ecuadorian roses. She walked up to me. It was Shang Xinxi. Shang Xinxi, heir of the Shang family. She naturally took the carry-on luggage from my hand. Leaning in, she whispered something in my ear, and I burst into laughter at her words. Seeing this scene, Shinbuyu's expression instantly twisted. The air pressure around her plummeted. Even Fang Zun beside her couldn't help but shiver. They were almost pushed by the crowd into the parking lot. By coincidence, Shinbuyu's car happened to be parked near my team's conspicuous stretch Lincoln. Shinbuyu saw Shang Xinxi politely open the car door for me. Just as I bent down to get in, I felt a sudden pull. I turned my head and met Shinbuyu's gaze. The next second, I nodded politely. Why Shinbuyu was here, not my damn business. At the same time, Shinbuyu's heart leaped into her throat. She could even clearly hear the sound of her own blood flowing. But the next moment, it fell into dead silence. She saw strangeness and distance in my eyes. I merely nodded slightly in her direction, as if responding to an insignificant, fan who had recognized me. Then I casually withdrew my gaze, bent down and sat into the car. From start to finish, I didn't pause even for a moment while Shang Shinsi also noticed Shinbuyu at that moment. She closed the car door. Through the window, she raised an eyebrow toward Shinbuyu's direction. A corner of her mouth lifted. Then the black stretch Lincoln sped away, disappearing at the exit of the airport parking lot. Witnessing this scene, Shinbyu froze in place as if nailed to the spot. Zun called her name several times from beside her, but she seemed not to hear. Only a buzzing sound filled her ears. A single voice echoed repeatedly in her mind. She saw me, but she ignored me. After returning to the hotel suite, Shinbuyu threw herself heavily onto the sofa. She stayed awake the entire night. The scene at the airport replayed over and over in her mind. The way I looked at him as if he were an irrelevant stranger. The intimate interaction between me and Shang Shinsi. And that final provocative gesture from Shang Shinsi. Every detail pierced her skin like poison-tipped needles. Only then did she suddenly realize she could not bear the way I looked at her with that gaze. And even less could she bear another woman standing by my side. The more she thought, the more agitated she became. Then she abruptly stood up, walked to the liquor cabinet, poured a glass of strong spirit, threw her head back and downed it in one go. Right after, she picked up her phone and dialed her assistant's number. Get me Fang Xiu's detailed address in Jingbei immediately. His entire schedule for the coming week. And that Shang Shinsi. What has she been doing these past 3 years? What exactly is her relationship with Fang Xiu? I want the most thorough report. The sooner the better. After giving the order, she paced back and forth in the room, waiting for news. Every minute and every second felt unbearably long. A few hours later, the assistant called back and delivered a detailed report of the investigation. My address and schedule were listed one by one, but the information about Shang Shinsi made Shinbuyu's heart sink further and further. Shang Shinsi came from a prominent family and was exceptionally capable herself. Ever since I went abroad 3 years ago, this heiress had shifted almost all her focus to Europe, permanently based in Paris. She quietly paved the way for me as an investor, using her connections and resources, helping me quickly establish a foothold in the fashion and film industries. These 3 years, she has been by my side almost like a guardian. We are very close, known to everyone as good friends, but whether we've actually become lovers is widely debated by outsiders. Good friend Shinbuyu let out a cold laugh and hung up the phone. There's no such thing as pure friendship between a man and a woman. Shang Shinsi's intentions, I can see through them at a glance. And you, Fang Xiu, you actually allowed someone like her to get close to me. At that moment, a strong hostility and an unprecedented sense of crisis settled over Shinbuyu's heart. For the first time, she felt disgust and jealousy toward the name Shang Shinsi. He really wanted to see me, wanted to ask me face to face about my relationship with Shang Shinsi. Fortunately, an opportunity came a week later. My assistant reported that I would be attending an afterparty for a top haute couture brand's show. Shinbuyu immediately used her connections to get an invitation. The party was held at a historic private estate. As soon as Shinbuyu entered, she quickly spotted me. At that moment, I was talking with several internationally renowned directors and producers, switching effortlessly between fluent French and English. Shinbuyu held a wine glass, staring at me from across the crowd. She waited patiently until she saw that I seemed a bit tired, and walked alone toward the terrace leading to the garden to rest. Now is the time. She quietly followed. The night breeze on the terrace was cool. I was leaning against the railing, staring at the lake in the distance. Shinbuyu walked up behind me, took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil in her heart. But when she spoke, she instinctively used an accusatory tone. What's going on between you and Xian Shinsi? I wasn't surprised by her arrival, but I couldn't even be bothered to turn my head. Isn't this President Shin? Long time no see. But what's it to you who I am with and how? It seems I don't need to report to you. The formality of President Shun and his distant attitude made Shinbuyu feel suffocated. She moved closer, grabbed my hand. Fang Xiu is leaving for 3 years. You've lost even basic judgment and discernment. What kind of person is Shang Shinsi? Don't you know he plays around even more than I do? What can he give you? Hearing this, I turned around, looked down at Shinbuyu from above. President Shin, you don't seem to have the right to talk about others. You say Shang Shinsi plays around? Funny. I used to be known as a notorious playboy in the capital circle too. We're a good match. Besides, Shinsi, he never denied his feelings for me, and he respects any choice or wish I have. Unlike some people who have someone else in their heart from start to finish, yet still use the guise of truth to waste 3 entire years of someone else's youth. Shinbuyu, who do you think is worse? These words were like a resounding slap, striking Shinbuyu hard across the face. Her expression instantly turned ugly. She opened her mouth, but found herself speechless. Just then, A voice cut in. I was wondering where you were. Turns out you were tangled up with an irrelevant person. Shinshinsi strode over with his long legs, naturally reached out and wrapped his arm around mine. Long time no see, President Shin. What are you chatting about with my boyfriend? The atmosphere doesn't seem too pleasant. Upon hearing the words, my boyfriend, Shinbuyu, her head was buzzing. Her pupils contracted sharply. She whipped her head toward me, staring at me intensely, pleading for me to deny it. Even just a frown would do. But I only tilted my head slightly toward Shinshinsi, silently confirming his words, without even sparing another glance at Shinbuyu or Shinshinsi, taking in all of Shinbuyu's reactions. Couldn't help but laugh. I heard that President Shin and our Fangxiu have some history, but that's all in the past now. Fangxiu is doing very well with me taking care of him, so President Shin doesn't need to. Bother yourself. He paused. His gaze swept meaningfully past Shinbuyu, toward the empty space behind her. By the way, why didn't you bring Mr. Fangzun along to have some fun? So you came out this time to have a fling with Mr. Fangzun. How pitiful. With that, he gave Shinbuyu no chance to speak, and pulled me away. Shinbuyu stood frozen on the spot, watching helplessly as we walked away together, the hand hanging by his side clenched tightly into a fist. This was the first time he tasted what it meant to feel a piercing pain. After returning from the party, the aura around Shinbuyu was terrifyingly low. Fangzun keenly sensed his unusual mood, and became even more cautious, offering warm concern, trying to soothe her irritability. That night, he carried a glass of warm milk, and walked into Shinbuyu's room without a word. Are you too tired lately? Do you want me to massage your head? Remember when we first met? Back then, there was a time I almost fell off a ladder trying to save a cat stuck in a tree. After you helped me, we got together. I massaged you like that back then too. You said it felt really good. He tried to evoke her memories with their first meeting, but as Shinbuyu listened to his words, her frown only grew deeper. For some reason, a scene flashed through her mind from long ago, words muttered by an old servant of the Fang family, saying that Fangzun seemed to dislike small animals when he was young, and had even secretly killed the neighbor's cat. Just then, Shinbuyu remembered the taunts I once made about Fangzun. Before, he had never paid them any mind, and even thought I was maliciously slandering him. But at this moment, he suddenly realized something. So he discreetly pushed aside Fangzun's hand. No need. I want to be alone for a while. Fangzun didn't dare press further, and obediently withdrew. A few days later, Shinbuyu's highly capable assistant, while organizing some old files shipped from home, stumbled upon a deliberately concealed investigation report from years ago. A copy regarding the suspicious circumstances of my mother's fatal car accident. Analysis. The report showed the crash was no mere accident. There were indications of human manipulation, and the biggest beneficiary pointed directly to Fang Minghong, who had rapidly climbed the ranks and taken over the Fang group. Almost simultaneously, Shinbuyu's inside source planted within the Fang group also sent an urgent message. The Fang group had long been a hollow shell. Fang Minghong had embezzled massive sums of public funds in recent years, transferring assets through complex overseas transactions. And Fangzun and his mother Lin Wan were not only aware, but deeply complicit. The Fang group was now deeply in debt, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. What struck Shinbuyu like a bolt from the blue was the inside source, then sending a secret recording. The recording was of Fangzun on a phone call with a so-called friend. The content. Back then, I deliberately fell off that broken ladder, pretending to save a cat, just to get Shinbuyu's attention. Women like her always fall for that. That time, I staged it myself. I knew Shinbuyu was about to come out, so I timed it perfectly and bumped into her. And that light fixture at the club, I paid someone to loosen it. I meant for it to hit hard, but it only grazed her. Still, it had the same effect. Who does Fangxiu think he is? Does he even deserve to compete with me? Shinbuyu's heart has always been mine, from start to finish. With a little trick, he fell for it, and even got Fangxiu sent away. Locked up for days. Until that very moment, Shinbuyu finally saw the truth, and the white moonlight he believed in. It was a meticulously planned deception from start to finish. And all the hurt he inflicted on me was built entirely on these lies. He was nothing but a complete fool, toyed with in the palms of this mother and son. Shinbuyu stumbled and knelt to the ground. His face was as pale as paper. He immediately had someone bring Fangzun to her room. When Shinbuyu threw those ironclad pieces of evidence in front of Fangzun initially tried to quibble, but under the conclusive evidence and Shinbuyu's pressure, he finally completely broke down mentally, collapsed to the ground, and confessed everything. Shinbuyu, it's because I love you too much. I was out of my mind. I just wanted you to care about me more. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Give me another chance. Shinbuyu looked down at Fangzun's twisted expression, his ugly appearance, without the slightest pity in his heart. He only felt disgust. At the same time, his mind uncontrollably conjured up my face. Even in the most embarrassing, most painful moments, I had never groveled like Fang Zun did. At this moment, she finally understood. The source of his infatuation was not the hypocritical Fang Zun, the white moonlight illusion built on lies, but the vivid and real me who, even though he had hurt me all over, had once given him my sincere heart and warmth without reservation. His so-called responsibility and old feelings for Fang Zun were self-deception. After the truth came to light, Shen Buyu handled the aftermath with swift and decisive action. He ordered Fang Minghong to immediately return all illegally occupied assets, and he used his connections. He transferred the evidence of Fang Zun and his mother's involvement in crimes to the relevant authorities. He completely broke up with Fang Zun. He severed all ties, without any hesitation. But after doing all this, he didn't feel relief, only emptiness. Brother Fang, I feel terrible. Where are you? I want to see you. I want to get your forgiveness. Even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance. For the first time, he set aside all his pride and status. He waited downstairs at the villa his assistant had found. At 7 in the evening, he carried an exquisite paper bag in his hand. Inside was the signature cake, from that old brand dessert shop I used to love, flown in specially. He remembered I am sweet, especially when I'm in a bad mood. Eating something sweet makes me relax completely. But he waited in the car the whole night, until his eyes were bloodshot, until his face grew haggard and disheveled. Only when the sky began to lighten did he see a familiar sports car pull up, parking at the villa entrance. I got out from the driver's seat, walked around to the passenger side, opened the door for Shang Xinxi. Shang Xinxi ruffled my hair, said something I couldn't hear, making me laugh. But that scene completely stung Shin Buyu's eyes. So he pushed open his car door and walked over quickly. Fang Xiao, let's talk, okay? Hearing the voice, I turned my head, saw that it was Shin Buyu, immediately furrowed my brows. Shin Buyu, why are you here? We have nothing to talk about. Wait. Shin Buyu anxiously stepped forward, fumbling frantically to pull out his phone, trying to show the evidence. Brother Fang, listen to me. I've investigated everything the Fang family and his family did. I was wrong to blame you. The incident in the garden that year, the light stand at the club, and your mother's car accident, none of them were accidents. It was me being stupid. It was me being blind. They fooled me. But before he could finish, I simply raised my hand and cut him off. So, upon hearing this, Shin Buyu was stunned. The truth had come out. And then what? Shin Buyu laughed. Ha ha ha. Did you think I'd cry my eyes out, run to you, and say, you finally know the truth? Let's be together? Shin Buyu. Your apology, your regret, they mean nothing to me. The hurt has already been done. The humiliation of being pushed away by you like trash. The excruciating pain of my wrist being broken in the detention center. None of this can be erased by a flippant my bad from you, or by these so-called pieces of evidence. As I spoke, my gaze fell on the delicate paper bag in his hand. I let out a scoff, still remembering I love the desserts from this place. How thoughtful of you, President Shin, to have them air-freighted from thousands of miles away. I lifted my eyes and stared straight at his instantly pale face. But I stopped liking sweets a long time ago. All sweet dreams are too cloying, too sickening. After saying that, I didn't spare him another glance. I turned and followed Shang Xinxi through the door. As the door slammed shut, the heavy wooden door completely cut off his view. Shin Buyu stood frozen, silent for a long time, and the paper bag in his hand, holding the cake, seemed to have become unbearably heavy. Inside the villa, I leaned my back against the cold door panel, and slowly slid down to sit on the floor. To say I wasn't sad would be a lie. There was still a dull ache in my chest, but more than that, it was a sense of relief and exhaustion. Letting go wasn't as hard as I'd imagined. The pain. Xinxi sat on the floor with me, slowly wrapped her arms around me. Fang Xiao, I'm here. You still have me. All this is in the past. Yes, it's all in the past. Outside, the rain grew heavier and heavier. Shin Buyu stood in the rain, utterly devastated. He looked up at the window that would never open for him again. His eyes were lifeless. She knew that what she had lost could never be regained. When he returned home, for several days in a row, Shin Buyu stayed in her room, refusing to see anyone, not handling any business, just staring blankly out the window at the sky. My words, completely meaningless, echoed repeatedly in his ears. The look in my eyes, as if I were looking at a stranger, haunted his mind. He couldn't accept it, just like that I kicked her out of my life. He couldn't accept that another woman stood by his side. But the first failed attempt to win her back didn't sober him up. Instead, it stirred the possessive desire deep in his bones. I, Shin Buyu, have never failed to get what I want. In the past I was naive, But now I see clearly. You must come back to me. An almost insane thought began to breed in her mind. He had to create an opportunity, where I would have no choice but to face him, where I would need him. He immediately called his chief assistant. Use every resource to find out for me what Feng Xiu's most important business partnership is next. No matter what method, I want to get involved. The highly efficient assistant quickly reported back. My team is in negotiations with a top luxury brand that has a century of history to discuss the global endorsement contract already in the final critical stage. Upon hearing this, Shin Buyu's eyes lit up. He immediately, under the name of the Shin conglomerate, sent a cooperation proposal to the brand's headquarters and offered a plan that would sell at a loss to gain publicity. There was only one condition: postpone the signing of the endorsement contract with me. The strength and influence of the Shin conglomerate were beyond doubt, especially in the Asian market. The brand's top executives, tempted by such a huge profit, indeed became hesitant. The remote video signing meeting originally scheduled for the next day was temporarily postponed. Request further evaluation. When the news reached my team, the atmosphere instantly grew tense. The agent frowned deeply, looking at me with concern. At this moment I am practicing in front of the mirror the lines of a movie scene I am about to perform. After hearing the news, I can only say I'm speechless. That's so typical of Shin Buyu. He wants to force me to bow my head and feel hurt. Xi Zhang was lazily curled up on the sofa playing a game. He immediately put down his phone upon hearing this, walked over to me. Don't worry, with me here Shin Buyu's reach isn't that long. When the video conference reconvened, on the large screen in the brand's headquarters meeting room, the images of my heartbroken Thorn team and Shin Buyu appeared in turn. The meeting began. The brand's CEO cautiously mentioned the more strategic possibility of cooperation proposed by the Shin Corporation. His tone betrayed hesitation. Shin Buyu chose that moment to speak. Shin Corporation is very optimistic about your brand's development. We believe our cooperation can bring a win-win situation. As for the choice of brand ambassador, I think it requires more careful consideration to ensure a high degree of alignment between the image and the brand's core values. He didn't say it outright, but the attack was aimed directly at me, implying that my experience or image might not be up to the task. The atmosphere in the meeting instantly dropped to freezing point. At that moment, Shin Shinxi's lazy voice cut in. President Shin, long time no see. What business back home isn't keeping you busy enough that you have the leisure to worry about the European fashion circle's endorsement matters? As he spoke, he looked directly at the brand's CEO. His tone turned forceful and serious. Charlie, Feng Xiu's image, professionalism and market appeal are obvious to all. Our Xiao Family Foundation has always been one of the most important art sponsors for your brand. I personally also greatly admire your brand's philosophy. Is the most correct decision. As for certain irrelevant outside interference, he paused. His sharp gaze swept toward the screen. At Shin Buyu on the other end, the business world has its own rules. Don't bring those unsavory personal feelings and tactics to the surface. Feng Xiu managed to get where he is today, relied on his own strength and effort. He doesn't need anyone to hand him opportunities, let alone accept extortion with strings attached. The heartbreaking words were like a loud slap, slapping Shin Buyu's face and also shaking the brand. The Shin family's foundation and influence in Europe was far beyond what Shin Corporation could match in a short time. Then it was my turn to speak. I calmly elaborated on my understanding of the brand's century-old history, craftsmanship, aesthetics, and core spirit, and combined with my own experience and future development, proposed highly constructive endorsement and promotion concepts. My speech was professional and confident, fully demonstrating the quality and vision befitting an international superstar. The brand's senior executives exchanged appreciative glances. The previous hesitation vanished completely. In the end, the brand's CEO made the decision on the spot. The global endorsement contract was officially signed. Shin Buyu's screen went dark first. He sat alone in the empty, cold office, listening to the busy tone in his ear, clenched his fist. That night, he faced his assistant standing with hands at sides, not daring to breathe, and screamed. Why won't he even give me a chance to make it up? Heartbreaking, I gave him everything I could. Shin Buyu, what can I not give? Wealth, resources, status. I can even give him 10 or 100 times more. What does he want after all? After much hesitation, the assistant cautiously whispered a reminder, President Shin. Perhaps what Mr. Fong wants has never been these external things. Hearing this, Shin Buyu was stunned. Not these. Then what does he want? For the first time he began to truly think about this question he had never deeply considered. Is it unreserved trust? Is it unwavering choice? Or love for her? Thinking back and forth, he still couldn't figure it out. Just as Shin Buyu was deep in thought, a sudden news threw him into panic. Breaking news. Continuous heavy rain in the Alps of southern France, triggering massive flash floods and mudslides. Communications in multiple villages and towns were cut off. Roads were destroyed. The situation was critical, and an urgent update from the assistant showed that I was reading the last line in that area. Shinbuyu's heart suddenly stopped. I was invited to participate in a charity photo shoot for an international children's foundation near the most severely affected town. Currently, all communications in the entire area are completely down. No one knows if they are alive or dead. At that time, Shinbuyu was chairing a crucial board meeting about the group's strategic direction for the next 10 years. When he heard the assistant's report, he abruptly stood up from his seat at the head of the table. He didn't even take the time to offer an explanation. Under the stunned gaze of all the directors, he simply dropped the documents in his hand, turned around and rushed out of the conference room. Prepare the plane immediately, fastest speed to Nice. No, not directly there. The nearest airport that can still land. Contact all local rescue organizations. Hire the best rescue team. No matter the cost. I'll go myself. What corporate strategy? What business empire? It all became insignificant upon hearing that I might be in danger. There was only one thought in his mind. Find me. Hours later, Shun Buyu, with a heavily funded, experienced professional mountain rescue team, made a forced landing during a break in the storm at the nearest still operable small airport close to the disaster zone. The weather was extremely severe. Thick dark clouds were swirling overhead. Wind and rain lashed together. Shinbuyu didn't stop for a moment. He switched to a helicopter that had been prepared in advance and flew directly to the lost contact area. But the helicopter couldn't land directly. It could only hover in a relatively safe zone, ignoring the crew's warnings. He was the first to rappel down the rope onto the muddy ground. The rescue team leader, looking at the road ahead washed out by floods, littered with landslides and broken trees, urgently tried to stop him. Monsieur, the road ahead is too dangerous. The mudslide is still ongoing. You can't go in. Stop talking nonsense, Jean Lu. Shun Buyu's eyes were bloodshot. Walking at the very front, the floodwaters rose past, his calves, icy and piercing. Rocks kept tumbling down the slope. The fierce wind nearly knocked people over. While dodging another small landslide, a rolling stone suddenly slammed into the backpack behind him, the pack carrying vital rescue equipment. Without a second thought, Shun Buyu instinctively threw himself against the pack, but his left arm was slashed open by the stone's edge. A wound so deep the bone was visible. Miss Shun, a team member cried out, wanting to bandage him, but Shun Buyu thought it was a waste of time. He just tore off a strip of cloth and roughly wrapped it around the wound. Gritting his teeth, he pressed on. After over 10 hours without sleep or rest, they finally found me in a dilapidated classroom of a primary school that was slightly higher in elevation, but had been surrounded by floodwaters, turned into an isolated island. At that moment, I was with a few teachers, comforting dozens of frightened children. My hair was disheveled, my face was pale, and my clothes were dirty and stained. But I remained calm. I was even telling stories to the children myself, trying to dispel their fear, when Shinbuyu, covered in mud, blood-stained all over, stumbled and appeared at the classroom door. Everyone was stunned, including me. The moment I looked up and saw him, my face was filled with disbelief and shock. Our eyes met. Time seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Shinbuyu saw me standing there unharmed. The anxiety that had hung over him for days finally eased. He ignored the excruciating pain in his arm, ignored his utterly disheveled state, rushed forward in a few strides, under the astonished gaze of everyone. He pulled me tightly into his arms. Then he repeated it over and over again. Thank goodness you're safe. I was held tightly by her. I could clearly feel his violent heartbeat and trembling body. At that moment, patted his back. Then I pushed him away firmly, but not roughly. Thank you, President Shin, for risking danger to rescue me. I owe you one. I took note of it. Shin Buyu's arms were suddenly empty. Seeing my calm expression, the smile on his face vanished instantly. He stood frozen in place for a long time. Just then, the sound of a helicopter landing came from outside. Shin Shinsi arrived with another rescue team and supplies. He rushed into the classroom, looking for me first thing. When he saw that I was unharmed, he visibly breathed a sigh of relief. Then his gaze fell on Shinbuyu. Seeing the wounds on Shinbuyu, his face darkened. He instantly became alert. Inside the makeshift shelter, medical staff were cleaning and bandaging Shinbuyu's wounds. The wound was deep and needed stitches, but Shinbuyu seemed to feel no pain. His eyes kept following me as I busied myself nearby. He quietly asked his assistant beside him, did he show even a trace of concern when he saw my injury just now? The assistant looked at his boss's pale and stubborn profile, and silently lowered his head. The answer was obvious. The rescue operation in the disaster zone was like a boulder thrown into a lake. stirring up huge waves in everyone's heart. Shinshi had witnessed with his own eyes how Shinbuyu could risk his life to save me. This made him feel an unprecedented and real crisis. He realized that Shinbuyu's feelings for me ran far deeper than he had imagined. He couldn't wait any longer. So, when the rescue work in the disaster zone had mostly stabilized, on the night before my team and I were set to return home, Shinshi didn't arrange a grand spectacle. Instead, he chose a quiet moment, near the temporary shelter, on a small hillside where the stars could be seen. It was just the two of us. The night breeze was cool. Shinshi glanced beside him, at me, looking up at the starry sky. He took a deep breath, walked over, blocking the starry sky. Brother Fong, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I think it's time to tell you. I know you might have always thought I was against you as a kid, like an annoying shadow. Actually, it was because I didn't know how to get your attention. You were too dazzling, like a little sun, always surrounded by a lot of people. I could only use that clumsy way to at least make sure you remembered I existed. Later, as I grew up, I spent all day hanging out in bars. Actually, it was because when I saw you with Shinbuyu, it hurt my heart, and I didn't know what to do. I could only numb myself that way, and also hoping you would see me heartbroken, that it's not like no one wants you. The 3 years I went abroad, I chased after you right away, not for any other reason. Just because I like you. I've liked you since we were very young. Hearing these words, I was silent for a long time. These 3 years, how good heartbroken words has been to me. Every little thing. I remember it all. He accompanied me through the loneliness of arriving in a foreign land. Silently supported me when my career hit a rough patch. Stayed by my side all night when I was sick. Respected every decision I made. Never put pressure on me. At that moment, heartbroken words suddenly crouched down and took my hand. Fong Xiu, I know you still have wounds in your heart. Haven't fully let go of the past. I'm not in a hurry. I can wait. I just want to ask you, can you give me a chance? Let me treat you well, properly, as your girlfriend. I looked at heartbroken words. This woman who grew up with me, through laughter and tears, yet never left me during my hardest times. I was silent for a long time. So long that heartbroken words' heart almost sank to the bottom. In the end, I nodded gently. A smile appeared on my face. You confessed to me. I had to accept. Upon hearing this, Shang Xinci was instantly ecstatic. Excitedly, he pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. The news of our official relationship. Although we didn't deliberately make it public, it was no longer a secret among our close circle of friends. However, when this news reached Shinbuyu's ears, it became the last straw that broke the camel's back. At that time, she was at the hospital treating an arm wound. Due to searching in the rain and wound infection, she had developed a high fever. She had to be hospitalized for observation. When her assistant cautiously reported this news to her, Shinbuyu was first stunned. Then she suddenly sat up from the hospital bed. She tore off the 4 needle on the back of her hand. Then she overturned the medical cart beside the bed. Impossible, how could he? How dare he, Shang Xinci? What gives him the right? Ignoring the doctor's attempts to stop her and the assistant's dissuasion, she forcibly discharged herself from the hospital. She drove straight to my villa. She even forgot that her arm was still bandaged, forgot that her fever had not subsided. There was only one crazy thought in her mind, to find me, to ask for an explanation. The night was deep. She stumbled to the closed wrought iron gate of the villa. She pounded hard on the cold railings, hoarsely shouting my name. Fong Xiu, come out. Tell me, this isn't real. You can't do this to me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Give me another chance. Fong Xiu. Her crazy behavior soon attracted the security guards. Several tall security guards tried to drag her away, but she struggled desperately, still shouting my name nonstop. In the end, she was forcibly removed from the scene. She was shoved into a car. The curtain on the second floor of the villa swayed slightly. I stood behind the window, watching that absurd farce downstairs, watching that woman who once stood so high and mighty, now being dragged away like a madwoman. My face showed no expression at all. Then I pulled the curtains shut. The next day, I sat by the sun-drenched floor-to-ceiling window, flipping through a newly delivered film reel, while Shang Xinci sat cross-legged on the carpet, working on business matters on her laptop. Occasionally she would look up at me, but this warm atmosphere was suddenly shattered by a news alert popping up on my tablet. Fong Minghong, chairman of the well-known domestic enterprise Fong Group, suspected of massive embezzlement of public funds and tax evasion, has been formally arrested. Fong Group stock price instantly crashed, declaring bankruptcy. In-depth revelations of the liquidation. A series of bold headlines were shocking. My finger swiping the screen paused slightly, as my eyes fell on the news photo. Fong Minghong was surrounded by reporters, his once confident face now filled with panic and disarray. but my face showed no ripple of emotion, as if I were looking at a stranger completely unrelated to me. Seeing this, Shang Xinxi put down her laptop, walked over to me, and naturally leaned into my arms. She didn't say a word, only silently declaring that there was still someone by my side. Over the next few days, the news about the Fong family continued to unfold. Lin Wan attempted to flee abroad with the last remnants of transferred assets, but was caught on the spot by the police who had been waiting at the airport. And Fong Zun, having lost his father's protection, his family's bankruptcy, and his mother's imprisonment, completely collapsed under the multiple blows. He tried to find Shin Buyu, hoping she would remember their past feelings and lend a hand, but was coldly stopped by Shin Buyu's assistant at the group headquarters, without even getting to see her face. Soon a gossip tabloid broke the news that Fong Zun had been sent to a suburban psychiatric hospital due to mental breakdown. I closed the news page, stood up and walked to the window, gazing into the distance. Shang Xinxi rested her head against my shoulder. It's all over. Fong Xiu, yes, it's all over. Those resentments, along with the Fong family's bond, the ending between him and Fong Zun completely vanished into smoke. It was also my true farewell to the past. The annual International Film Festival. The award ceremony became the focus of global attention. Stars shone brightly on the red carpet. I held Shin Buyu's arm and calmly walked down the red carpet, the top-floor office of the capital city Shin Group. Shin Buyu did not turn on the lights. She sat alone in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window. In the darkness, only the fluorescent glow from the television screen. The screen was live broadcasting the festival's grand occasion. When the camera gave a close-up of me and Shin Xinxi, her pupils suddenly contracted. The award ceremony results were announced. With an art film that profoundly interpreted the complexities of human nature, I successfully won the Best Actor crown. When my name was called out, the entire audience stood up and applauded. Under the spotlight, I slowly walked onto the stage. I took that heavy trophy from the presenter's hands. I gave a brief acceptance speech. I thanked the director and the crew. Then my gaze turned to Shin Xinxi in the audience. Finally, I want to especially thank one person. My beloved, Shin Xinxi. Thank you for always being by my side, giving me support and strength. This trophy is half yours. The camera immediately focused on Shin Xinxi. He stood up and blew a flying kiss to me on stage. Shin Buyu abruptly turned off the television. In the darkness, he gasped heavily, "No, I can't just watch like this. I must do something." The celebration banquet after the award ceremony was held at the official festival hotel. Until late at night, only then did I and Shin Buyu, surrounded by assistants and bodyguards, walk towards the underground parking lot. But just as we reached the car, a shadow stumbled out from behind a pillar and blocked our way. It was Shin Buyu. He stared at me fiercely. "Let's talk. Just 5 minutes. No, 3 minutes will do. Give me one more chance. I'm begging you for the last time. Without you, I really can't go on living." Seeing this scene, Shin Xinxi immediately jumped out. "Shin Buyu, look at yourself. What have you become? Wake up. Fong Xiu is with me now. He is very happy. Please don't disturb his life anymore." "Happiness? What gives you the right to give him happiness? What do you know about him? Do you know that he's afraid of cold in winter and when sleeping, likes to steal the blanket? Do you know he can't handle spicy food, but loves to eat it, and needs to drink ice water every time to relieve it? You know him enough." I spoke up to interrupt him. "Shin Buyu, don't bring up the past anymore. What's between us ended long ago. Not over. How can it be over?" Shin Buyu excitedly tried to grab my arm, but was blocked by Shin Xinxi. As we argued, no one noticed. At the entrance of the parking lot, a black sedan, seemingly due to the driver being drunk or losing control of the vehicle, suddenly accelerated violently, swerving and rushing fiercely in our direction. "Watch out!" Shin Xinxi was the first to react. However, one person was faster than him. Before anyone could react, Shin Buyu used all her strength and fiercely pushed me, who was standing on the outermost side, out of the way. But she herself, due to the recoil, was completely exposed in front of the out-of-control vehicle. With a dull loud bang, Shin Buyu's body, like a kite with a broken string, was hit and flew high into the air. The emergency room light was on all night. Shin Xinxi and I waited on the bench in the corridor outside. The emergency room door finally opened. The doctor walked out wearily and told us Shin Buyu's injuries were extremely serious. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, but after all-out rescue efforts, he was temporarily out of immediate danger, transferred to the ICU for observation, but still not out of critical condition, requiring close monitoring. I breathed a sigh of relief, but my heart still felt heavy. After another day and night of keeping vigil outside the ICU, Shin Buyu's vital signs finally stabilized, and he was moved to a general ward. Shin Xinxi accompanied me as I went in to see him. Shin Buyu lay on the snow-white hospital bed, with various tubes inserted into his body. His face pale, thin and emaciated beyond recognition. But the moment he saw me enter, his eyes instantly lit up, so he struggled to make a sound. Fang Xiu, Shinshinsi patted my shoulder, and gestured that she would wait for me outside, then considerately closed the door behind her. I walked to the bedside, and sat down on the chair. The doctor said you're temporarily out of danger. Shun Buyu greedily gazed at my face, and with difficulty raised the hand without the fore wanting to touch me. But when he saw the distance in my eyes, he let it fall weakly. I'm sorry, Fang Xiu. She began to pour out her words intermittently, from being initially deceived by Fang Zun to later realizing her true feelings, yet refusing to admit it out of pride and stubbornness. To the pain and regret after losing me, she apologized over and over, and confessed her love again and again, even casting aside all dignity and pride, humbly begging Fang Xiu, I know I deserve 1,000 deaths, but please, give me one more chance. Let me spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Without you, living or dead makes no difference. I listened quietly, without interrupting her, until she grew tired, and her voice gradually faded. Only then did I slowly speak. Shin Buyu, thank you for saving me this time. This life-saving grace. I will remember. Shin Buyu. A glimmer of hope ignited in her eyes. But my next words completely extinguished that hope. But love is not gratitude. Even less is it guilt. It ended between us long ago, when you used your connections to have me sent to detention for Fang Zun, making me suffer immensely. Every time you chose to believe him, and hurt me without hesitation. It was already over between us before that. Shin Buyu, let us just leave it at that. After saying that, I stood up, without looking at him again, turned and walked toward the hospital room door. Outside the door, Shang Xinsi was standing there. I walked over to her, naturally took her hand, then left the ward without looking back. Shin Buyu lay on the hospital bed, staring at the empty door, watching my resolute departing back. Tears streamed down involuntarily. Time passed quickly. Another year went by. This year, my career reached new heights. I took on a film directed by a top international director. An epic movie, playing a character who held fast to his beliefs amidst war. My acting was superb. It was profoundly moving. At an award ceremony hailed as the highest honor in the film industry, when they read out the name for Best Actor, the whole audience erupted. I rose calmly, and hugged Shang Xinsi tightly, who was beside me, emotional with red-rimmed eyes, then walked toward that globally watched stage. Under the spotlight, I held the trophy symbolizing the highest honor in cinema, delivered an acceptance speech, thanking the crew, thanking my family and friends who have always supported me. Finally, I looked at the woman in the audience. I want to dedicate this honor to my fiancé, Shang Xinsi. You made me believe that love could be so beautiful. You also gave me the courage to become a better version of myself. Miss Shin, I look forward to your guidance for the rest of my life. The camera immediately cut to a close-up of Shin Xinsi. She had already stood up, and made an I love you gesture toward me on stage. 1 week later, a low-key but warm wedding was held at a private estate. Only the closest family and friends were invited. Sunshine, lawn, flowers, and white veil. I was wearing a suit that my close friend and designer had personally crafted, simple yet elegant. With my arm linked through Shin Xinsi's, I walked along a path covered in flower petals. Our wedding invitations were also sent to some people from the past. Top floor office of the Jinshin Corporation. Shin Buyu stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the still bustling city below. She looked thinner than a year ago. On the desk lay a delicate wedding invitation, untouched. On the wedding day she did not go. She only went to that office where she and I had shared countless entanglements. At that moment the phone screen suddenly lit up. It was a text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. In the photo I was wearing a suit, standing in brilliant sunlight, smiling at the camera with sheer happiness. Seconds later, another message came in. Only one sentence. Shin Buyu, I forgive you, and I have let myself go too. Take care, Shin Buyu. She stared fixedly at the photo and those words. Her heart struck as if by something heavy. With trembling hands, she caressed the screen, tracing my happy smile. Finally, her tears burst forth uncontrollably, large drops splashing onto the phone screen. She was crying and laughing at the same time, like a madwoman. In the end, she pressed the phone tightly against her burning chest.